Hi everyone, it's Molly, jumping on before we start with a quick content warning. In today's podcast, we briefly mention suicide and rape. If either of those things are triggering for you, please don't hesitate to skip today's episode.
Watching movies can take a while, and they often go out of style. But there's Megan and Ben to tell you what to watch with a smile. So I married a cinephile.
And we're rolling. Hi, guys. I'm Ben Farmer, and I'm a cinephile.
And I'm Megan Carver, and I'm a cine newbie. We watch all kinds of movies, new and old.
And we let you know if you should watch them, too. Welcome back to another episode of Season 5 of So I Married a Cinephile. Megan?
Holy shit, what a day.
How are you?
I'm so good. I have to say, for anybody that has the video level subscription on Patreon, I'm so excited that we flipped literally everything. So you can see my forehead now.
I don't know why we didn't do this sooner.
I could wear a top hat this tall and you could see all of it.
Should you choose, we can wear top hats now.
We could wear top hats.
We do have a brand new setup, #blessed, but we were trying to kind of iron out the whole, they can't see our face parts because the mics used to be inverted to where it would cover up our entire face.
Yeah,
so
and
anyhow,
I think we both had the same thought. Is what if we
just flipped the mics?
The mics.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. If
There we
flipping
are.
things is kind of a good theme for today. Yeah, but I'm good. I had a good yoga class today. I felt like a strong, empowered woman.
Yes.
I could hang tough through the chaturangas and Sanskrit squat. What was it? There was one, I can't remember. There was a squat that we did. Anyways, I'm feeling good. How are you, Ben?
I'm very well. I got to commit suicide in acting class today.
Oh my God.
That was fun.
Do it.
So I got to do that for a few hours.
Nope.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, high trigger. We're not doing that.
I think there are usually 10 of us in the class and there were 5. So
I even heard one of them say wow, Jason, way to pick just rolling in the aisles material this week.
We hadn't touched on the horror genre yet, and it was a really intense scene, but it was one of those scenes that just kind of turned me on to the technical aspects of acting. Anyhow, So that was a lot of fun. Did a half hour on the rowing machine. I am also showered and fresh.
I didn't say I was showered and fresh, but that is true.
We are both showered and fresh.
And I took some very specific time to get myself ready, just like somebody else that we might know in a movie that we recently watched.
That's true.
Also, I'm really stoked for our guest that we have here today.
Who is he?
Oh my gosh, it's Patrick Oliver Jones from Why I'll Never Make It podcast.
Oh my gosh, you mean actor, singer, podcaster Patrick Oliver Jones?
I do. Patrick, welcome.
Well, hello. It is so great to be here. I love this. Your new setup is wonderful. It makes me jealous.
Thank you. Yeah, Santa got us some new equipment, so
yes,
we were good girls and boys last year.
We were.
Yeah,
we were.
It's pretty great.
It's good. How are you doing?
Good. I was listening to you're very busy, and I'm like, all I did today was watch some TV. I kind of worked on my website, and now I'm here. So I feel like I am not as the busy actor I need to be. You both are inspiring me.
We work hard,
yes,
and sleep hard. No, that's play true. Hard because it's a pandemic.
Right. There's no playtime right now.
No,
right now.
They're just building up in the workbooks of what eventually you will do, and then we'll have the Roaring 20s all over again. Then along with us, we also have our amazing producer, Molly. Molly, hi.
Hello. Hi, it's me, Molly. I'm not your host, but I'm here too.
I want that as a t-shirt. I'm not your host, but I'm here too.
That does need to be part of our Patreon.
I think that
swag.
might need to be some swag, and it's done in game show host font.
Yes.
I'm not your host, but I'm here too.
Great. So I'm here. I'm good. I watched the movie.
Your first time?
Yes.
We'll get into it. We'll get
into
it.
Let's get into it. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I have my friend Katie Jo. Katie Jo was on a couple seasons ago. She has some very strong feels about this movie, and very strong feels about the musical of this movie, which I didn't get to see.
Me neither.
You did? Okay. So I'm really curious to hear about that.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, let's dig in.
It's good to be in a
'Cause,
room that,
you
you know, is full of actors, but in a time where working right now is kind of tough. And you got to maybe get creative to try and produce your own work.
Speaking of,
And sometimes you cross a line that you can't step back from once you cross it.
Crossing lines and getting creative and maybe pushing boundaries in an inappropriate way.
Definitely pushing boundaries for sure.
We watched Tootsie,
1982's Tootsie. Plot breakdown per IMDb. Michael Dorsey, an unsuccessful actor, disguises himself as a woman in order to get a role on a trashy hospital soap opera.
Oh, I'm so glad they said trashy. That makes me really
and
happy.
I was thinking about that as I was reading the description. I'm like, oh yeah, the soap actually isn't that good. Like
it's not, and it's
terrible.
like, but it's
pretty bad. But starring, of course, Dustin Hoffman as Michael Dorsey and Dorothy Michaels. We have an incredible Jessica Lange as
I didn't
Julie.
know it was Jessica Lange.
Really?
I
Oh yeah, you mentioned that last night because
I'm so used to her being so much more severe.
I don't think Megan has seen anything with young Jessica Lange in it. So
No.
when you see a young Jessica Lange, you're just
I was like, oh my
blown away.
God, she's delightful and sweet.
Of course, Teri Garr, who plays Sandy, Dabney Coleman, who plays the director Ron, Charles During plays Julie's father, Les. We also have Bill Murray rounding out the supporting cast.
I love him so much.
And Punky Brewster's guardian, George Gaines, plays John Van Horn, the terrible soap opera actor. And we also have the director and producer of the actual movie, Sidney Pollack, as Michael's agent at CAA. So, wow. I of course have my own opinions and thoughts about this movie. This is my maybe fourth or fifth time seeing it. First impressions, Megan?
Also,
first time?
this is my first time through. To be fair, like we talked about watching Tootsie, and then we came to Portland to stay with my mom for the holidays, and it's been on cable like nonstop lately for no reason. And I always come in at the same spot and always have to leave. Oh, Molly's timing out.
Yeah. We need to do plot in 60 seconds before first impressions.
Right. That's right.
Holy
Thank you.
Shit.
This is
I'm
why Molly's
so
here.
glad you're here, Molly.
Someone is keeping you on task.
On task.
I try.
So
at least we said the movie this time.
Yeah.
That's very true.
There are times that we just get so excited that we don't say the movie, and Molly's like, guys, no one knows what we're talking about.
So, Patrick, for our guests, we do a little something called Plot in 60 Seconds, where we give you, the guest, the opportunity to describe the entire plot of the movie in 60 seconds or less. Molly's going to keep a timer.
Oh gosh.
It's just something we do as an icebreaker, so it can be great. It can also crash and burn.
Part of the
it's also Molly's
my favorite part. Yeah.
So no pressure.
It's true.
No
whenever you're ready to go, I'll keep a count.
All right. So we have this down and out actor who's also a teacher. So that's really how he makes his money. But as an actor, he's just not making it. He goes to audition after audition and either isn't kept or it's like not right for him, quote unquote. So he just has to, he cannot do such a thing. So he's not making it. His agent is saying, hey, you cannot find any work because you have a bad attitude. So magically in the movie, we all of a sudden see Dustin Hoffman transformed into now a woman. So now he goes and auditions for a soap opera as a woman, books it, no one knows anything. And he starts doing lines as they're written, but then starts making up some lines. And slowly through the course of the movie, his character becomes one of the stars of this sitcom. And he falls in love with one of his co-stars who then eventually finds out, hates him. And then the movie kind of ends with them maybe being friends.
All right.
It's so good.
It's like at the beginning of 60 seconds. Oh my God, I can totally do this.
You think you have all the time in the world.
You do.
And then the 10-second mark hits.
Yeah.
You're like,
oh,
no, it's gone. It's gone.
But that was pretty amazing. That's
I like the countdown though, because then it gave me a way to wrap it all up.
Yeah, exactly. That's our wrap it up button for sure.
For those listening and not watching, I put fingers up and I count down from 10 to 0 the last 10 seconds to just really ramp up that adrenaline and anxiety.
As soon as your hands come up, the energy all of a sudden turns frantic and terrified. Like I will explode.
It's high stakes.
I will actually explode if I don't do this.
For sure.
I love it so much.
Oh my God.
Right, because I realized that by the time she put her hands up, I was maybe 30 minutes into the film. And so I'm like, crap, I got to do another hour and 10 seconds. Okay, go.
Right.
Yep. That's always kind of
so
how it goes.
Act 2 and Act 3 are in the final 10 seconds.
It's also too great when we have two guests on because they try to do half and half, and usually the first person takes way too much time. So the last person's like, "Thank you, I'm totally under the bus now. I have to try to wrap this shit up in 12 seconds."
So that's plot in 60 seconds. Great job. Wow. I want to ask you guys' first impressions of the movie, Megan.
Yeah, so I haven't actually seen it top to tails except for last night. And my first impression was I went through a wide range of emotions with this movie. Like sometimes I was like gonna loll all day. I had such fun with it. And other times I'm like, that is so offensive. But then I had to check myself and be like, okay, remember when this is made? Yeah, there were a lot of ups and downs for this. And I'm very curious to hear what other people have to say.
Yeah. Patrick.
Well, the question that I have, I'm going to go ahead and go to a question, if that's
okay.
Sure.
Because my question is, yes, it was in the 80s. It's not as, enlightened as we are in 2021. Yes. But at the same time, I felt like anything that would be offensive and still offensive today was kind of checked and balanced with like, no, you don't do that. So did it still offend you, or was it like, oh, that's what some people do, and then it was checked and called out? I'm curious.
There were some parts that were checked. I will agree with that. There were some parts that were like, okay, like that's not cool, shut it down. And then there were other times where it was like, okay, stop it. We'll do it again. Like there were some parts that just did not redeem themselves and used humor to like be like, rule of 3 for comedy will just make him keep getting attacked by a man even though he said no several times. Don't kiss me. It's funny.
Yes.
Bill Murray is here to save you from being raped. I did appreciate that Dustin Hoffman called out. He's like, I was about to be raped.
Yeah.
I did appreciate that shit.
Yeah.
Like that was something that I did note, but there were moments that it's like that in real life, it's like that should have stopped or that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But then there was also stuff that was so freaking delightful. So wait, Patrick, is this your first time seeing Tootsie or when?
No, I had seen it before, but it had been a while. So like you, I watched it last night. And so the reason why I asked you that question before I got into my impression was because for me, I think it did, knowing the 80s, because I was a child of the 80s, and it seemed to address, or at least start to address, a lot of the things that we've kind of been dealing with the last 5 years and kind of calling things out. And so for me, I was actually surprised at how forward thinking it was in some respects with regards to how women should be treated in the workplace. And, because they're all actors and in the entertainment field, specifically in that genre. But so that was my first impression in kind of realizing, oh, okay, this movie was rather progressive for its time.
I totally agree. There are some parts of it that were definitely like pretty progressive. And then other parts, it's just hard for me to check my own like Me Too stuff for older movies.
Sure.
So Ben, what about you?
I was thinking the same thing as far as checks and balances of the things that were happening in the movie where, Dorothy is like physically accosted and she gets all these pet names thrown at her. But I think I agree with Patrick in that there were most moments, if I remember correctly, there were checks and balances to all of them, including the potential rape scene, which we could get into. But I did appreciate the fact that Dustin Hoffman called that out after it happened. And I think most moments did. And I was trying to think of where this fell in other 80s movies, because I was thinking of a movie like 9 to 5.
This reminded me a lot of 9 to 5.
Yeah,
which Jane
Fonda was. Yeah, so very similar as far as women in the workplace and how we should be, treated as equals.
And
same evil villain too.
And
the same villain.
Same villain. Like he did like 2 to 3 years of playing almost the same part. But I actually have some trivia about his role in this movie specifically. But hello, good morning. I agree with you in that there were a lot of uncomfortable moments. And I think being as woke as we are in 2021, we can recognize those moments. But I also did appreciate a movie for 1982 calling those things out at the same time. So, but my my first impression, this was a movie that was on TNT like growing up, but I never watched it front to back because I didn't know if I was allowed to watch it because it had a man dressing as a woman, and I grew up in a very conservative house.
Wait,
I was allowed to watch Mrs. Doubtfire.
You were allowed to watch Rocky Horror Show.
I did not watch Rocky Horror Show at my house. I had to go to a friend's house to watch it.
Oh, okay. All right. But, I'm really glad we clarified.
Yes.
I've actually never seen that movie all the way through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think for that reason that I too grew up conservatively. So a movie like that was just a no-go.
Yeah. So for me, it was a privilege to actually sit down and watch it front to back. I think I'd seen it maybe once before, but it was some years ago. And it's been on cable while we've been here in Portland all
at
the
least
time,
3 times.
but we keep coming into the movie at the same exact point. So again, it was nice to
it's always my name is Dorothy. Dorothy. And I'm like, I know what's happening here.
And you're over halfway through. So Molly, was this your first time watching it?
This was my first time seeing the movie.
Okay.
I did get to see it on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that I saw it on Broadway.
Okay.
I think I wanted to black it out. Not that it was
good, huh?
Not that it was a bad production. There was nothing wrong with it. Santino did a great job. It's the story. And both Rocket and Ben are drinking right now. So if you hear Slurpees, that's the farmer.
I tried to back off the mic.
That's okay.
He's got a lot of fur.
It's like there's that saying, your favorite is problematic, and that's like all I could think about after I saw the Broadway musical. And my brain really wanted to shut the movie out.
Yeah.
Like my brain knew what was coming, knew the stuff that I found problematic already.
Right.
And I will tell you, I didn't turn it off, but my brain did. I could not finish this movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And all of the research I did, I just kept being like, fuck you. I could not get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
that's a good perspective to have. My mom loves this movie
and hates Moana.
Loves this movie and hates Moana.
Your mom and I have issues. Okay.
Join the club.
You could have been friends.
Just like any parent-child relationship.
Okay.
It's complicated.
Yes. But so then let's get into some discussion about, because it sounds like we're already on our way.
Yeah, I mean,
into that Q&A territory.
We're primed.
So did anyone opening the floor, were there any discussion questions, or Molly, I know that you always have a really good time coming up with some fun discussion cues. Anything that people wanted to throw out on the floor there?
I mean, I feel like I have a big sort of meta question, so I don't know if I want to lead off.
And lead off,
but I will.
Do it.
I suppose the question is, I think one of the things that this movie is trying to do is, how do I phrase this? It is showing it's putting a man literally in the shoes of a woman and helping the man be empathetic towards the experience of being a woman in the world. I'm wondering if the movie actually fulfilled that part of its mission in trying to empathize with women in the world and how they're treated, because it is a romantic comedy, I suppose.
No, it's
comedy
not.
First, romantic. I don't know how you. I mean, it's definitely a comedy, and I know Dustin Hoffman.
It's the same thing as Bridesmaids is not a romantic comedy, but there's romance in it.
Sure,
it's a personal growth story more than anything.
I would say so. Okay, that's a really good point. But I'm wondering if you guys think if the movie accomplished its mission of some sort of not women's liberation, because I feel like that's too broad of a stroke.
No,
but do you know what I'm saying?
I think I know what you're saying. Did it create the opportunity for men perhaps to see the world through a woman's eyes, because that's literally what they were trying to do in this movie.
Yes. Did it succeed in that way?
I'm going to hold off on my comments. Yeah, go Patrick, go.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and that was one thing that struck me, is that I think through Dustin Hoffman's character, I think most men, and especially I think, we're all actors, so we can even more so put ourselves in that position. But I do think that it accomplished that purpose because the character himself, Michael Dorsey, definitely goes through a transformation and even says it at the end, that he's a better man as a woman than he was as himself, So he definitely learned some things, and even just the things he would say to speak up for herself as Dorothy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that way it did accomplish that. So for me, it was actually very, very interesting, and I felt it a very feminist piece in that way, that it showed how women could be and were treated, and how to treat them better. And so for me, that message at least came across.
Okay.
I guess for me, it sure tried, and then it stumbled. Like, I feel like it tried to provide a very unique lens on specifically women in the workplace. And I think so specifically to actresses in the workplace, like with waiting, out in line for auditions and being told to leave just because they don't look right.
Yeah.
Even though that did happen to Michael Dorsey as well, I suppose, like, let's not make it just, a sexist issue that happened to him.
Yeah.
But then we find out it's not actually because of how he looks, it's because of his attitude. So I guess that was one thing that was kind of like, they tried to make it similar when actually, like, this stuff that does happen to women in auditions, that happens.
Yeah.
And I guess too, there was another part of me that thought they were maybe leaning into, and there were some hints of this, like gender fluidity and like what it is to express your feminine side. And is that good for you? Like, for example, when the girlfriend got really pissed off and was like, "Are you gay or something?" And he said, what did he say? In what sense?
Right.
I actually loved that answer. I thought that was a great answer. And that actually showed some confusion around his identity. And then also too, at the end, when he's talking about like, I'm a better man as I am Dorothy than I was when I was just myself.
Right.
Which then part of me is like, okay, so then is that leaning into perhaps some exploration of trans? Because he sure loved dressing in those clothes. He felt more like himself. He was a kinder person when he was in those clothes. So there was a part of me that actually thought there's some really interesting exploration on gender fluidity, but I think there was so much poking of fun of it that it ended up stumbling on itself.
Okay.
So I think that it sure tried to bring that lens in, and I think that it tried to reach more audiences by making there so much humor about it. But I think that there are probably a lot of people that are like, this did not succeed in any way because it needs to be authentic 1000%, which then is it a comedy anymore?
Right.
But I would say, and this is where I differ, is that yes, there are stereotypes for a reason, because a certain segment of a certain population does certain things. So, right, stereotypes come from something. They come from a certain truth, but they obviously do not apply to all.
Yes.
So that's where you draw the line on a stereotype. However, the things that happen in that movie do happen in real life. They are actual things that women go through, that men go through, that maybe people who dress a certain way, whether they're dressing opposite their gender or whatever it is, these are things that happen that people go. So in a certain sense, it did give a true depiction, although heightened for movie and for comedy's sake.
Yeah.
It still gave a true depiction of things that actually do happen. But the reaction to them, the calling it out, which may or may not happen, also happens. There are things that happen that we don't speak up when we should, and things just continue to happen.
Yeah.
There are times when we take a stand. So for me, it was still, as heightened as it was for comedic effect, it still represented things that do happen.
Agreed.
I also was going to ask the crowd in terms of mirroring around, because what made me so pissed off about Michael Dorsey's character, there were a couple of things that made me really mad at him. But one thing that made me mad at him is that he's making fun of and calling out the director guy for being a raging asshole. And he's like, I don't like the way that you treat Julie, and I don't like how you are not faithful to her and all that shit. And I'm like, you're literally doing the exact same thing. Like, you have no business calling that shit out.
Which is why he says,
at the very end of that conversation,
I
know you better than you think I do, because he's saying I
am the same way.
When I take my tits off,
exactly.
I'm exactly the same.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's those kinds of moments that not redeem the movie for me, but make it not ahead of its time,
maybe
but acknowledge it. Not just the fact that you're having this conversation and I don't like the way you treat Julie, but the fact that there's a line in there that says, I know you a lot better than you think I do because I am the same way. So I recognize that in myself. To me, it's the mirror up to nature. Michael doesn't like him because he sees a part of himself reflected back at him, you know?
Interesting. This is getting real heady. I was not expecting this for Tootsie. I'm not gonna lie.
It's one of those movies where go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it brings up these issues, and especially now, 2021, it's going to be a different conversation. I think it would have been similar conversations in the 80s, but maybe not as progressive, not as forceful, not as realized. But now we can look at it and we can call out the moments at which it's like, okay, making the right steps forward, and then where it's still kind of in the, caveman days.
Where do we still have work to do?
Right. Molly, I'm curious because I feel like you're sitting on some stuff. What do you got?
Ooh, okay.
Right, because I am curious why you couldn't make it through, why your brain clicked off.
And
I think
it's interesting that
I had some pinchies. So
I think it's interesting that you've seen the musical before the movie. So
but blocked it out.
So I think that a lot of things happen to Dorothy that happen to women in real life. But the way that Dorothy reacts to it is actually Michael reacting to it, right? It's like he's not like being a woman reacting. He's being himself reacting to how he's being treated. And I think a lot of the ways that Michael reacts, even as Dorothy, would have been shut down because he was a woman. You can't change the lines in the script. I don't care that it's a shitty script and you're getting more views. Like, you can't do that. The way the director, there was 1 minute where this is a rant and rave. I'm sorry. But the way, right. So Dorothy says, my name is Dorothy, not Toots, right? But the rest of the time, that director is so respectful to her. And so I felt like that wasn't realistic. I felt like, no, you guys still don't understand what women really go through when you do stand up for yourself, because we have to in the workplace. There is pushback from that. You would have been fired. You would have been blacklisted. You would have been not talked to by the rest of the men on set for the day. It would have just been, so that didn't feel real to me. And
if you took Bombshell from this last year and you made Bombshell into a comedy, that would be an accurate depiction of what it is to be a woman in the workplace sometimes. And I don't know how you could do that without being wildly offensive and really triggering in every way, shape, and form. But I think that there are some parts of that I agree with you.
So at least for me, it didn't feel like a realistic female experience.
Well, and I guess the thing, and this was another question I had, is that whenever he would fly off the handle and be a total asshole on set or on stage for rehearsals, they would be like, okay, I'm never going to work with him again. But then when he did the exact same thing as a woman, they're like, wow, she's so stand up. I like that quality in a woman. Let's keep her on and pick up her option. I was like, okay, so because
that never happens.
She's a woman and she's saying the same thing that she did as a man. Does that make it better or okay or excusable? That was something that I was very confused about.
I didn't know if you needed to look at that through the lens of the soap opera, because maybe up to that point, this movie also goes out of its way to make fun of soap operas. It does. But I think in the case of, is it Southwest General? Is that what the soap is called? Something like that?
Yes, I think so.
So maybe in the case of the show, they hadn't really seen a soap opera character who is female react that way. Like, Dorothy comes in and she's, it's her first day and she has to kiss the old doctor, and they're like, oh yeah, he kisses everybody. We call him the tongue. And
I did appreciate that.
And so he turns the tables on this horrible actor during the scene. So anyway, to that point, I think maybe you have to look at it through the lens of the soap opera, in that they hadn't really seen a female character like that before, or behave that way before, or change the lines, or hit somebody in the head with a folder or something like that.
Right.
So it was a very kind of watershed moment when she stopped the advances of this doctor or actor or whoever
multiple times. That's my thing that pisses me off.
It escalates through the movie with
times.
This guy.
Yeah.
So
I also too was going to ask what people think Bill Murray's role in this movie was, because I feel like there's more to it other than just being the roommate, but I'm not sure if I know what it is.
I think he is the voice of acceptance, because the thing is, he never questions his roommate doing it. There's one time where he's like, how can you keep doing this? Just managing both lives as a man and as a woman, just for logistics sake. But he never really questions it. Like his roommate's dressing, trying to find a dress and this particular thing. And then they talk about wigs together and how no, you need to fix that. But really, he is just the voice of acceptance and like, this is what's happening. My roommate's going through this, but also calls him out like, hey, you need to treat your girlfriend better. So he's kind of a voice of reason through it. That's how I saw him.
I agree. He's a little bit of a Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with the word acceptance. There are a few times where he mentions like, okay, I think we're getting into a weird area here.
Right.
So I think he's like a mix of acceptance and also like your conscience of like, okay, should we take a step back and like really look at what we're doing here, or should we just like ignore all this and just keep going? But yeah, I think you're right. He's also a playwright, so there's also kind of a really pure quality to Bill Murray in this.
His whole bullshit about if I could just have a theater that's only open when it rains.
Because then you get the true theater.
You get the truth.
Until they're
dry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love the word acceptance. I think that's a great way to describe.
I don't know why he ate lemons.
His plate of lemons. Like,
did anybody else catch that?
Yeah,
he literally
it's
just
when he's
had a
packing
plate
for the
of
weekend.
Lemon wedges.
When Michael's packing for the weekend to go upstate with Julie and her dad, but yeah, he's just eating a.
I will say that is one
wedges.
part where he's like kind of judging him a little bit. He's like, I just think you're going to burn in hell for all this.
Yeah.
And he does
he still
say,
calls
like,
him out.
He calls him out and is like, I'm pretty sure you can't go back and like let people know that you've like taken advantage of all these fans and women and done all of this stuff and just get away scot-free. So I do appreciate some of that stuff. And I love Bill Murray. Like, I just like, I'm going to save that for a rave. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber and want to hear rants and raves, be sure that you sign up for that.
Are you going to mention your dad too?
I probably will mention my dad
and his link to Bill Murray.
Little hint there.
Okay.
Teaser.
I'm excited.
Teaser. Crowd pleaser.
We haven't really talked about some of the other supporting characters. I didn't know if maybe a little bit, but I didn't know if you guys had, other than Bill Murray,
Gina Davis.
Fucking Gina Davis in her first movie. Her very first.
Oh, that was her first movie. Okay.
That was amazing. Yeah. And I actually realized in that moment, I was there were two separate spots where Gina Davis was there. And I was like, oh, it's so close to passing the Bechdel test. And then it just doesn't. Like, it was so close. And then it didn't. They were standing there talking to one another. And then.
But was there any other like supporting character or scene that stuck out to you guys?
Well, for me, it was interesting just comparing. There's Gina Davis, Jessica Lange, and then Teri Garr. And of the three women, like Teri Garr, I felt was the one that was written the most stereotyped, the most. Okay, she's just the punchline of the film. She is this stereotypical hysterical woman who just flies off the handle, gets emotional, and no one can make sense of what she's saying because she's just so irrational. So she was just this heightened, quote unquote, stereotype of a woman that was to me the annoying part. She just didn't seem to have much. Yes, we all get hysterical sometimes, but there was no dimension to her that you connected with her, that you resonated with her. Like Jessica Lange her character had a little bit of both, where it was like heightened and then it was like really real and getting to the heart. So
she has
I question what her point was. What was the point of her being in, like, would the movie have been different if her character had just been cut out?
I swear to God.
Teri Garr had been cut out?
Yeah.
I swear to God. This is one of those things where it's like, ever since
you think it was important that she was there?
Absolutely, because to me, getting to that line where he talks to Dabney Coleman, where he talks to the director and says, I know you more than you think. In order for that to make sense, we have to see how he treated Teri Garr's character
and women
in order for that to make sense. Yeah, and women in general. But Teri Garr is kind of the embodiment of how he treated women and just kind of sloughing it off. And
I don't know if she was as stereotyped as I think you guys maybe okay. She also has some really good lines in this, and maybe some of her lines to me were a little bit saving in that the explosion she has when she finally she doesn't come to the realization that, you know, Michael is Dorothy, but I forget how the whole scene plays out, where he's like coming out of the shower and he gives her the chocolates and she finds the note on the chocolates. And she has some lines where she just lays into him and he's like apologizing. And she has a line that I always remember is like, no, there's nothing you can do for me to make me feel better. I'm just going to feel this way until I don't feel this way anymore. But you have to know that you made me feel this way.
That is what it is to hurt someone's feelings in a relationship.
That's a strong line.
Yeah. So
I love that.
To me, there were some lines that
oh my God,
saved her. But I do think you're right. Maybe her arc or her journey, they did sort of portray her as the emotional, stereotypical New York actress who
just to really quickly, like there are so many good one-liners in this movie. Like I wrote down
this movie
when she picked up the corn cob and she's like, that's a corn cob, not the phone. I wrote down, that's a corn cob. Like there's all these fucking random lines that are so great. I really love the writing in this. I truly do. I'm sorry, Molly, you were going to say something.
I don't remember. Oh, I do remember. Yes. Well, besides her great lines, could her reasoning for her character being there been accomplished in a 30-second montage of him being a womanizer? Like, that's what I mean by does that character, like, what does she bring? Like, of course, she brings something that it was just a question.
I mean, I guess for me, it would be something where it's like, it would be different for me, at least if she wasn't so emotionally gullible, I suppose. Like if there was some strength to her, or there were some more qualities where I didn't expect her to say that really strong line at the beginning, and then as soon as she's out the door and the door's closed, she's crying on the other side and thinking that she's a horrible person.
Right.
Like there was just so much ridiculousness to her heightened characterization of that part that none of it seemed grounded or realistic. I had a hard time relating to her because anytime she did say something truthful, I'm like, in a second, you're going to be crying over like that you didn't have enough Chex cereal this morning. Like just ridiculous. So, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because as ungrounded, to use your word, as ungrounded as her character was, I think from a writing device, her character is what grounded Michael, because as a woman, we get to see how he reacts, how he views the world. And then in his relationship with Teri Garr and that character, then we see how he is as a man reacting to the world and interacting with others. And so in that piece, she was rather necessary to give us both sides of his character.
Yeah.
Which too, to be fair, she gave him an out right at the beginning. She said, like, if we're just having sex once and calling it, let's call it. And he for whatever reason, he's just like, no, I can do it. It's like, you don't have to do it. She just said you can go. You're fine. Why didn't you just go?
But he feels the need not
but
to.
But the man wants to step up. The man wants to step up. Yeah. You know, we want to be like, no, I can do this. I can do this. There's that is a very man quality of right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Men like to take duct tape to our lives and feel like we can fix anything.
Interesting.
Pants, relationships, whatever.
Now, I gotta tell you a really weird thing in the Broadway show.
Yeah.
Bill Murray's character and Teri Garr's character end up together at the very end.
Really?
It's really weird. It's really weird.
Because he has a girlfriend in this.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, he does?
He has a girlfriend in this. Maybe he doesn't.
Not
in the musical.
That. No. Yeah.
I'm really curious what changes and differences there are in the musical.
So bizarre.
To this.
That's all I remember, honestly. That's all I remember of it.
So, and I do have, it's sort of, I guess, a conspiracy theory, but
we can move into hot takes now.
Okay. Hot takes. So it's not so much of a hot take, but I have a conspiracy theory that there is an alternate ending to this movie somewhere.
Okay.
I think that they had two endings.
I firmly believe that.
You think so?
They had two endings and they went with the one that we saw, but the other one is that he reveals himself and then they go, wow, because she's like, oh my God, well, I'll be damned. And then they love it and they cast him and continue casting him as the brother and he stays on the soap.
Huh.
I think there's an alternate.
I'm sure there was that plot point that kind of went that direction.
Because it seems weird that he shows up and he's like, it's me. And then it just, that whole soap opera just drops. It's like you never see it again.
We never see the fallout of his career.
Exactly.
Now the soap doesn't want to work with him now because we know that no one in New York and no one in Hollywood will hire him.
Right.
So does this also snowball on the fact that no one will hire him, or does everybody want to hire him now because he fooled literally everyone?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally, my conspiracy theory is there is a second ending out there. And
Locked
that it
deep
ended
in the
with
Columbia
him.
vault.
It's in the Disney vault along with all the other random
Why
ass.
is it just the Disney vault?
Because that's what does MGM have a
I'm
vault?
sure they have a vault.
Does
Probably.
Warner Brothers
at
have
least
a vault?
Safe somewhere.
No one's talked about it. Disney is the only one that's made it public. So that's where everything is.
Millennial mindset and verbiage, Disney has the vault.
It has the vault.
Disney
It
vault.
is the Disney vault.
The vault.
Yes.
Wow.
So
I didn't even think about
No,
that.
I absolutely agree with you. Because there's actually one huge, for me, plot hole in the whole movie, because there's the I don't know, first 20 minutes, half hour maybe, of Michael Dorsey, the actor. We find out his life. We're introduced to his girlfriend / whatever, his career, not career, teaching. We're introduced to this, and literally out of nowhere, for no reason, without any indication that's coming, he's all of a sudden on a street dressed as a woman.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And I mean, if you know the movie, if you know what the plot is, then you're like, oh, okay, now we're getting into it. But writing wise, they never address why he thought of this, how he thought of this, where he got women's clothes from, like all of these things. It's just one scene he's a man, the next all of a sudden he's decided to be a woman, and it's never addressed.
Patrick,
So for me, that was a huge thing.
There's a saying we have on this podcast, and I think it rings true here, which is movies are bullshit. Movies are bullshit. It's just like, hey, that's happening now, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just. Great.
That was something I was thinking about today as we were prepping to do the podcast. That transition, or lack of transition in particular. Because I think you're right. They never address.
No, he sneezed and it was on him. It just happened at him.
Wave of a magic wand, and he's walking down 7th
Cinderella
Avenue as a woman.
I mean, iconic scene of him in the crowd, revealed, walking through. I mean, iconic scene. Yeah, how did we get?
How did we get here? We do open the movie with a bit of a hair and makeup montage,
which I did appreciate. I thought that helped.
Kind of. It doesn't excuse the fact that they didn't show us how he became a woman or started dressing like a woman, but it did give maybe a little bit of a hint of what's in store. But you're right, they didn't show us that transition, I suppose. Yeah.
I watched an interview with the director, and he was saying that there were little pieces in the first 30 minutes, especially when he's working with Teri Garr's character and like in the acting classes, where you see him turn to a bit more like feminine, or like when he's running lines and doing the female part. So they like tried to subconsciously have you see soft parts of him and see that he could play this woman, and then he just appears as Dorothy. And I was like, more.
Today, I am going to go back. I'm going to go back and just watch that 5 minutes of the movie just to see if there's anything I missed. Because I was racking my brain to see if there was like, did I just forget a scene?
No, there is a part because like when he's rehearsing lines with
That's
what's her
right.
name?
When he's rehearsing the scene with Teri Garr.
She's like, well, fine, you do it. And he does it and fucking does it.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why can't I do it like you? And he's like, stop being a pussy. Well, he doesn't say that. But
so that's supposed to be the moment that all of us go, oh. And then he's supposed to show up in drag, essentially. And us go, of course. That's
going and buying all those clothes. And this was all in one day.
No, I don't think it was in one day.
But yeah, I mean, because obviously they were still auditioning for that particular role. So obviously it was maybe within the same week, maybe or something like that. But
Thursday or Friday.
But still, I've read a lot of scenes with a lot of people playing different characters, and I don't all of a sudden that week show up as a Black man or an Asian woman or, and all of a sudden become something else.
God.
That would be bad.
You got to make your own work, Patrick. You got to make your own work.
I got to find the work. However,
it's 90% unemployment.
I don't just magically transform.
Come on.
It's because you're not a Black man.
Because I ain't.
That's what it is.
There you go.
That's what's missing, clearly.
I want to see you and Stafford, who is on our podcast, do a joint podcast.
Yes.
Why I'll never
my God.
make
That
Tipsy
would just be an entire hot takes, rants and raves.
Great.
That's all it would be.
Our guests are the best anyway.
So,
sorry, tangent. Our guests are great.
Just to go back over the timeline, Teri Garr goes in for the audition. She is let go 10 seconds in because of type. We need someone else.
Typed out. Yep.
Typed out. She's gone. She starts crying. He goes back to the desk and asks if someone is there today.
Yeah, because he wants her to go in for an audition.
Right.
He's like, I'm a man. I'm going to fix this now.
What happens after that?
Then she says, oh, he's not here right now. He's rehearsing for Iceman Cometh.
Oh,
on
and then
Broadway.
He goes and sees his agent.
Excuse me, I was supposed to be in Iceman Cometh on Broadway. And then he goes, I'm sorry, your problem isn't my problem anymore. I need to go talk to my agent.
That's right. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, which is very Michael Dorsey. So he goes and talks to Sydney Pollack. Sydney Pollack says, no one's going to work with you. You're washed up in New York. No one in Hollywood either.
In my head, I heard Sidney Poitier, even though that's not what you said.
They call me Mr. Tibbs. And he says,
guess
that's
who's
what they call
me,
Mr. Tibbs.
Dinner.
I love it.
So they won't hire him. And then he leaves his agent's office. And then we see him walking down the street as a woman.
In my head, that happened in the span of 2.5 hours.
It makes you long for that.
That's how it happens.
That's how it feels.
20 minutes in Mrs. Doubtfire where Harvey Firestein is making up Robin Williams over a musical montage.
And we needed that.
That's what we needed.
Cut half of the Go Tootsie Go part and put it over there. Use it there. I missed it.
But see, in Mrs. Doubtfire, we understand, we see his thought process of becoming a nanny, of becoming a woman, of taking on this character. We at least kind of see that transformation in Tootsie. It's a swipe of a scene cut.
Yeah, it's barely a suggestion, and then it's like, okay, this is what we're doing now.
I think they skipped a part between testing hair and makeup for Dustin Hoffman and then transitioning that into the movie. They're like, okay, here's the look. Now we just drop it in, like boom.
Again, another scene that was probably cut out.
Maybe.
Like I'm sure there's probably some scenes cut out in there. The alternate ending, that scene, whatever montage of him.
I get so frustrated when you can see that the editors and producers have got their fingers in it. Like it's a hard thing to do. To be a good editor and to be a good collaborative producer is a difficult thing.
Yes.
And when it's not done well, and you can see I'm just going to get all me on this. When you are a copy editor and you're working on someone's work, they say it needs to look like you came in and cleaned everything up and everything looks better, but they don't know why or how. It needs to be seamless. It's like fucking ninja grammar punctuation stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
That's how I think good editing should be. The story is already there. They're fine-tuning it and making sure the story is told in the right way. This was, I think, lacking in a couple of chunked out areas. It just,
I dig the
maybe celery
theory.
soda spilled on the footage, and
we have to do it live.
Have to do it
live.
Also, Dustin Hoffman could have been absolute shit at putting on female makeup. It could have been filmed.
Crap.
And he could have been just like, you know what? This is terrible. It's not going in.
Real quick conspiracy theory. Celery soda. Did anyone else notice that Bill Murray was eating celery after the party? So maybe he's the one that spilled the celery soda to help his roommate get out of the soap.
Hashtag Bill Murray
stretch.
Wow. We're gonna call that a taffy point. That's a stretch.
Call that a stretch, my friend.
That's a taffy plot point.
Now we have to see if the director's cut of Tootsie exists. Maybe we'll get those scenes.
I mean, that's been on my to-do list since ever.
Something that I noticed that we see both Dustin Hoffman as Michael and Teri Garr get rejected, right? For not being the right look or whatever for the character. But we get to see what is Dustin Hoffman's character? Michael audition and then be told, sorry, you're not right. And she got kicked out in 10 seconds. Did anyone else notice that?
Which I guess,
like, of course, different
happens,
directors, and it's TV and theater, and of course they're different, but it was like that felt important to me.
So I'm gonna actually toss that point over to Patrick, because if you guys don't know, Patrick Oliver Jones has this fantastic podcast called Why I'll Never Make It, where he talks to and interviews, like, we're talking Broadway stars, we are talking like the folks of the biz that have, in a lot of people's eyes, quote unquote, made it. And I know that there's a whole segment that you do that's like audition stories. Have you heard of any of this kind of stuff happening? Or is this like, I've not really heard of this happening before?
As far as being typed out, that kind of thing, or just
I guess typed out, and then also
going in and then leaving immediately.
I think maybe I think all of it, like maybe typed out, because I know that I've been typed out, but I've only been typed out in theater auditions. I've never been typed out at film auditions, because they wouldn't have called me in anyway.
Specifically soap operas too.
Right. And then I suppose I've never heard of situations where I've gone in and I'm like, fuck you, I'm doing an audition and I'm just going to like bust my way in and then end up getting a part. I've never heard of anything like that happening.
I think that can gingerly happen in a theater audition, where they want to hear your monologue, and then they say thank you, and they said, well, actually, I'd love to try the scene because of blah, 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 blah. And they go, okay, and then they book it. So
really?
So sometimes it can happen where you stand up and be like, well, actually, I'd like to do this, or can we try this song? And so that does happen. And as far as being typed out, I mean, I have my own story being typed out of Addams Family, and then a year later, I'm in the tour. So you never know.
Can we hear that
That's
real
crazy.
quick? Can we get like a Patrick Jones typed out and then cast an Addams Family musical in 60 seconds?
Yes, because that's about how long it took. No, because so it's one of the chorus call auditions where they bring you in 10 at a time, literally line you up against the wall. They have your headshots on the table in the order that you're standing, and they slide up, slide down, slide up, slide down. Keep these four, the rest, bye-bye.
Yep.
That was your audition. You just stand up against the wall, and I was one of the however many that were said thank you, goodbye. So I literally waited to stand up against the wall and then be told no.
Yep.
Okay, great. That was my audition. Thank you so much. Then a year later, they're doing the tour, and they bring me in for, again, it's another chorus ensemble role. And that they have me, do the understudy sides. They have me dance, and then I made it.
Wow.
So, once I actually got to audition, it's like, oh yeah, you can do this. So typed out is always like, it's at the only time. I'm trying to think. No, that may have happened once before, but it's rare that I've done those kind of typed out calls, thankfully.
That's happened to me at least twice. Yeah. And two, it's like, I think about, however many times we've had stuff like that happen, but then I also think about these poor casting directors that have to look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actors a day. Like,
all look the same. They really do.
After a certain amount of time, especially like the hour before lunch, you can't remember whose face is a foot. Like you it's all a blur. So it's like, I also feel for them, because they want you to be the answer and they want you to get your shot, but they also they're human and they're exhausted.
Well, one interesting thing about this movie is something that we no longer do. I mean, yes, there's pandemic time, so now it's all self-tapes. But even before then, who goes to the theater to audition anymore? Who goes to the actual set of the TV show and auditions? Like these things never happen anymore. Like so that is something that I think that had something to do with the audition process that they're showing in the movie, because that was more typical back then. And since they didn't have emails that you could just send someone's headshot, they needed to see you. And then they see you and you're like, okay, you're ugly, get out of here.
Right. And also too, when was the last time, I don't remember this ever happening since we've been actors, that you somehow found a headshot, printed it out, went to the studio, and then attacked the actors as they came out and said, "Hi, could you sign your headshot for me?" When does that happen?
Hilarious.
Oh, as far as
I've
autographs.
never seen that happen. I was like, oh my God, that's right. That was the thing. And I'm like, where did people go to buy these headshots?
Like, now it's just Simon.
Probably at the studio.
Probably.
I would assume the studio would just have headshots.
Well, they're giving tours.
Yeah, they're giving tours, so maybe they give out.
There's definitely a gift shop where you can buy an 8x10 for sure.
Really weird.
Why don't we do that anymore? That's because it's weird.
Because I can just go look at their Instagram.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't
and direct message them.
Message them.
Yeah.
I know. This is one of those things where it's like, oh my God, Dan Levy added me once, and now I'm like, oh, all the celebrities will talk to me now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, yeah.
You can get a hold of anybody now.
You can.
All right, with that, shall we hop into some trivia?
Let's do it. Trivia.
Oh boy, here we go.
Let's cue that awesome new trivia music. So this is actually something I wanted to bring up in conspiracy theories, but sort of relating to what Molly sent us. Molly sent us this great AFI interview with Dustin
I didn't watch
Hoffman. It's very good, but there's
Not yet.
part of me that I don't take offense, but I want to go to bat for Larry Gelbart here, because the story is, at least from how Dustin Hoffman tells it, his friend, and I forget, Murray Scheisgall came up with the concept of Tootsie, which is actually not true. Larry Gelbart went to his grave. I think the day before Larry Gelbart died, he gave an interview saying, I actually came up with the concept. Dustin Hoffman has been lying for 30 years that his friend came up with everything. So I just want to get that on the record.
Scandal.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then I'll die.
Yeah.
And then I'll die.
So no one can come at me.
In an interview conducted before his death, writer Larry Gelbart revealed that he nursed a grudge against Dustin Hoffman because Hoffman claimed that his friend, writer and producer Murray Scheisgall had conceived the movie. In his last major interview in 2008, Gelbart told Salon.com's Mike Sachs, Tootsie was my vision, despite Dustin Hoffman's lifelong mission to deprive anybody of any credit connected with that movie except for his close friend, Murray. I say that because Dustin appeared with James Lipton on Inside the Actors Studio in 2006 and declared that Tootsie, that the idea for it sprang from Murray Scheisgall's intestines. I don't know much about gastroenterology, but I do know that the central theme for Tootsie came from me.
All right. Okay. All right.
I want to go to bat for Larry Gelbart for this because I'm a big MASH fan. So maybe I'm prejudiced a little bit. So
and
credit where credit's due. That's important.
And you're going to find information. You're going to find it at salon.com.
Exactly.
Like that's where you're
if there's a trusted source.
Forget about WikiLeaks.
Or Wikipedia. For
Wikipedia.
And Salon.com.
Salon.com is going to
That's where I get my factual information.
Me too. NPR? No, thank you.
Apparently, the crew would only give bad news to Dustin Hoffman when he was in drag because apparently he was much nicer when he was dressed as a woman.
See?
Hilarious.
See?
I think Dustin Hoffman might be a jerk in real life, guys.
I think he might be.
I get that.
All right. I'm not going to assume.
I think I've heard some stories like that. But also I think that has to do with his method approach
his
to acting.
Training. I absolutely agree.
Being the character.
The audition scene when he's coaching Teri Garr in her audition, I'm like, oh no, that's Dustin Hoffman coaching Teri Garr. I'm like, this isn't Michael coaching his girlfriend. This is actually Dustin Hoffman. The character of Dorothy originally did not speak with a Southern accent, but in doing research, Hoffman discovered his voice fell more closely into the range of a female pitch if he did a Southern accent. And the way he practiced was he would call Meryl Streep on the phone. He would read the lines of Blanche from Streetcar Named Desire to Meryl Streep over the phone, and she would give him feedback because they had just done Kramer versus Kramer the year before.
Sorry. Rocket
springs up. Can you believe
Rocket
that?
has the best comedic timing.
Just
Now,
emerged.
Did he come up like right at the end?
He did.
Yeah.
Is Meryl Streep his favorite actor? Because that would make sense.
Like Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. I'm sorry, what?
Meryl Streep.
It's not the
We
first
all-
time
we
we've
all
discussed her on
react
this
that way.
podcast, and it won't be the last time we've
I think
discussed
he
her
got
on this
stuck.
podcast.
I think he got
he's
stuck behind the cushion.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Oh my
Rocket.
gosh,
I
that's
usually
funny.
try not to pay attention to that, but that was just
But
like a
that was
cartoon.
good.
So
That's too
funny.
much.
I can't
That
wait
was
for you to
super
see that
upstaging.
back. You guys are
Almost
gonna watch.
upstaging.
You guys are gonna make that like a boomerang.
That's gonna be a GIF right there.
Oh,
Bill
yes.
Murray actually agreed to omit his name from the opening credits because he did not want people thinking that they were coming to see a Bill Murray movie because of both Caddyshack and Meatballs. He had a bit of a reputation at that point, so
Yeah.
he didn't want people thinking that they're like, "Oh, I'm going to see a Bill Murray movie."
Bill
So,
Murray's like a
Oh,
good,
interesting.
he's just a good
dude.
person,
He's
man.
just a good person. He
again,
is.
the opposite of Michael Dorsey.
I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess.
acceptance. That's what Bill Murray is.
Mhm.
Forgiveness.
Dustin Hoffman claimed that after playing Tootsie for the first time, he went home, burst into tears, told his wife how brainwashed he had been. And this is in the AFI interview Molly sent me, which I thought was really touching, except for the part where he said, my friend came up with the idea, which was bullshit. So he had these hair and makeup tests. He wanted Columbia to do these hair and makeup tests so that he himself could feel like he could
that's
pass
right.
the hair and makeup tests plausibly as
In
a
real
woman.
life.
Right.
Which
And going through this process, he's like, I want to be more beautiful. What can we do? And they're like, Dusty, that's as good as it's going to get, buddy. And then he had
That's
an
your
epiphany
face.
of, yeah, he's like, that's just, you are as God made you, sir. And he had this epiphany of, wow, I have ignored so many women at so many parties or so many experiences in my life because of how I view women as beautiful, because I've been brainwashed to view them in a very certain way.
how meta.
I have missed so many conversations, so many opportunities to connect because of how brainwashed I am to view women in that way.
Which I
And
did take some
I really
umbrage at
respect it.
how many times that they were like close up and they're like not too close. That
Yeah.
that pissed me off.
I thought that was a running
that
joke
made me mad.
because
Well, but
I mean,
but the thing is like if it was a man, so
Right.
like yeah, there is that kind of meta moment of well, it actually is a man, and so he's not going to
Yeah.
be woman pretty. He's going to be a different kind of. So yeah,
I don't know.
and he is, as Dorothy tells Jessica Lange, like, oh, I wear so much makeup because I have a mustache thing going on.
Right.
And she totally buys that. And then later in the movie, she's like,
Oh.
oh, I actually felt the mustache. You might want to.
Also, too, the crazy. I'm sorry. I know you're doing trivia,
No, you're
but there
fine.
was that crazy moment where Jessica Lange was like, "I love you, but I can't love you." Oh my god!
Fucking heartbreaking.
Just, and I was like, "Oh my god!" There was also again some like sexuality and like sexual exploration undertones there. That was just
Yeah.
like,
Well, that's what she meant.
yeah.
exactly.
I love you, but I'm not gonna fuck you. So please
Right,
let's
it's
Right.
stop
but then
trying
it
to
was
make out
also
with
like
me.
it was well then I also thought it was too is like I love you, but it's like I felt that there was, and maybe this is just me identifying with my own journey with sexuality. It was like she was like I'm attracted to you, but I don't understand why I'm attracted to you, and I love you, but I can't love you. It was like all this different stuff.
I thought a big part of it was knowing her father was attracted to Dorothy. She felt like she was being
Oh,
put
I
in the middle of
didn't
that
even
as
think
well.
about
So that
that.
was like a whole other
There's
layer
that,
added
yeah.
onto
Super
that.
weird.
So
That
she was
was
choosing her
so
father
awkward.
over Dorothy in that way.
but also I've known many women in my life who have that are not lesbian yet can feel a chemistry, can feel a connection with a woman beyond just friendship. And so
yeah.
I think that that is one of the things that is more easily accessed in women than men, that emotional connection to another person of the same gender that women seem to be very fluid and easy with,
Yeah.
whereas men have a lot of barriers to find that connection.
Yeah, I
I
think
totally
that's
agree.
true. Like there because we communicate so much more, at least I feel the gender that I identify with is able to communicate emotion a lot more clearly. So I'm able to find a bit more gray versus black and white. Whereas I think that society, puts a lot of pressure on men to be like, nope, you're this or this. There's nothing in between.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more leeway for perhaps the female gender. I don't know that, but then I also know there's always exceptions. Like it's
Well, of
never
course, of
always one
course.
thing.
Yeah.
so.
No one and group is ever one thing. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
My last bit of trivia is relating to Gina Davis. Again, this was her first movie.
So fucking
There's a great line in the movie where Gina Davis tells Dorothy, "Oh, everything has changed so much for the better since you came here. You know, you've just lifted the show and made us all feel like family." And Dustin Hoffman has a really funny line, but Dustin Hoffman mentored Davis through the experience. And the one piece of advice he gave her was like, never sleep with your co-stars. If someone tries, just say this. Just say, I feel like it would really affect the chemistry we would have on camera. Gina Davis had to use that line a decade later on Jack Nicholson when he tried to sleep with her. And Nicholson's reaction was like, whoa, where did you get that line? Holy shit.
What?
Wow. And he just walked away. So it worked.
What movie were they in together?
I think it was Hero.
What? It wasn't.
She was nominated for an Oscar.
It wasn't Cutthroat
I
Island.
think it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't Cutthroat Island.
Okay. I mean, he's not wrong. Also, like
Right.
He's not wrong.
I mean, it sucks that you need a reason besides saying no.
Yeah.
Which again, that was something. Oh no, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save for Ransom
which
Rage.
we see in the
saving it.
movie.
I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it.
So that's trivia.
That's trivia. Sort of to cap us off and wrap us out, cap us out and wrap us off.
Sure.
Cap it.
Yes.
Yes. We go into the worth a watch section. This is where we like to let you know, is the cookie worth the calories? Would you recommend watching this movie? We're going to start out with our guest, Patrick. Is this worth a watch?
You know what? If I'm basing it off of, let's go with eyelashes. You know, out of 5 eyelashes, what would I give it? I would have to give this a solid 4. It's not because of different writings and holes in the plot lines and different things like that. It's certain depictions of scenarios with women and men. For those reasons, I think in 2021 it can't get a full 5, but I would give it a solid 4 because I think it hits enough of the marks to where someone now, with certain exceptions, but someone now can appreciate it for what it is, and also understand the comedy, understand the roles that are kind of being played with and becoming fluid, and kind of walk a mile in my shoes kind of thing. So yes, I would give it 4 out of 5 eyelashes.
I love it.
Ooh, ooh, love. Molly, I'm curious about you. I'm going to hop it on over to you first.
I mean, our listeners will be not surprised to find out that I do not think it is worth a watch.
I'm in the dissenting camp.
Pretty much every episode.
That's not true. There's one. You and Ben.
There's I think one, which I've said we should watch it so far. It's not over yet. I found no importance. I don't feel like I learned anything. I don't feel like I was entertained. I felt uncomfortable. I felt gaslit. I felt by the character, not like the movie gaslit me. I thought it was going to be one thing and it wasn't. I knew what it was.
There are movies that do that.
Oh my God, can we do that?
100% movies that do that.
Next time I go to
all of the new Star Wars
when the pandemic
movies?
is over and we go to the next Star Wars movie, I'm going to come out from the movie theater and be like, I would like my money back. That movie just gaslit me. I want my money back.
But in general, if you haven't seen this movie, and your question, I think you don't need to.
If you haven't seen it, you don't need to.
If you haven't seen it, you don't need to.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough. Ben.
I love this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm really trying to check myself as a self-identifying straight white male living in America who's also an actor.
You are Michael Dorsey without being the asshole.
Oh my God, I might be Michael Dorsey.
Every man actor has the potential of being Michael Dorsey.
That is true.
Put it out there.
That is true.
Made in 1982, and maybe this is something that Patrick touched on briefly. Made in 1982, I feel like it was groundbreaking to a point. I'm not saying they stuck every landing, but watching this movie, it is so well made. I was telling Megan last night, I'm like, I don't think a single line or a single shot is quote unquote wasted in this movie. I'm not saying it's perfect, but almost everything in this movie has some sort of meaning. And whether it's the writing or the way it's filmed, we have these great inserts where if you think about Dorothy's first day on set, where she has to like catch Jessica Lange, but she catches her and then the doctor gives the wrong line because he's looking at the teleprompter. And there's just so much great coverage, and you know what's going on at every single moment and every single beat of this movie, that it felt like to me I was watching a play. And some of the shots were even composed that way too. So I'm trying to be mindful of like all of the messages and what this movie represents. But to me, I didn't write anything down for this movie because I was just so taken away by it. So I think at the same time, I'm trying to check myself, but defend the movie.
Right.
But I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And I'm not saying it succeeded in all of its messaging or maybe what it was trying to do, but
Ben just wants to land the role in the Broadway tour when it comes back next. Yeah,
so,
I get it. I get it.
Listening.
I think it's really fascinating too that there was that whole fucking ordeal over the non-ec Tootsie
yes.
tour.
Oh my gosh. I didn't think about
after
that.
watching this, hearing about how all those actors would have been put in some pretty precarious situations and how they were all desperate for work. And I'm like, that's fucking meta as shit about the whole Tootsie non-ec thing. But then I also have friends who know producers, and some like they're like, nope, that's not how it was supposed to shake out that way. And there's lots of layers to it. There's a lot of layers to it.
I believe this movie is worth a watch. Megan.
I think that it is. I'm going to say we're going to give this one worth a watch with a grain of salt. Cause I think that just like it just like Ben said, like you do need to remember when this was made, and that there are parts of this that right now is just like, some parts of it are like if ever a movie needed to be Me Too'd, like there are some parts of this movie that are really not okay. But then also too, there are a lot of parts of it that are so joyful and are so fun and are so empowering for women. And so I think that there are some really strong, unless you were like hypersensitive to that kind of thing anyways, that stuff wouldn't catch your eye, I suppose. And like, let's face it, just like Ben said, no movie, unless you're Moana, is going to get everything right. Moana. So I think that considering that, I think it's totally worth a watch. However, just keep in mind when it's made. I actually really enjoyed this movie, and there were I'm going to talk about it in rants and raves, but the physical comedy in this,
oh man,
just the one-off fucking physical comedy, I loved.
Like on-camera physical comedy.
Loved. That's hard stuff to do.
Yeah.
So I would say worth a watch.
Yeah.
I think what I'm learning in this podcast is movies don't get a pass just because of when they were made for me. Like they either upset me or I like them, Right. And that's like,
no, not for this one.
It upset me. And
yeah.
He didn't. I'm going to say this for the 3 listeners. He never said, I'm sorry.
It's true.
That the whole time after he reveals himself. And then again, when he goes to her, he says things that but he never said the words, I'm sorry. He made that whole speech that we talked about earlier of the, I'm a better man than when I'm a woman than when I'm a man. But the lines, I'm sorry. Yes.
Didn't
Ben?
he say I'm sorry to her dad?
Oh, that's interesting because that was the scene that I thought was wasted and could have been cut.
Oh,
that was the other part I disagreed with you on, Ben. I was like, I think that scene.
I also don't think all the montage in the upstate. I was like, I don't need to see him on the back of a tractor. Like, thank you, but
that was weird. That was
weird.
strange.
Also, too, like so 80s with like the song in the background. Is there like, making dinner and like, I'm riding horseback. Oh,
we have to see them fall in love. Or him fall in love with her.
I suppose. I guess again, we could cut that in half.
But also the dad falling in love with Dorothy.
And then we could have pushed that over to the makeover scene for Tootsie that we missed out on.
I'm not saying it hit the mark.
You got to allocate I'm going to say it's flawed. That is also something we say.
I don't remember him saying I'm sorry to the dad.
Okay. So I can't remember.
I'm not sure if
he might have, but
for me, it felt like the entire movie, like even the parts that were joyful, I was like, but you're gaslighting her, you know, the whole time. That's all I can think this whole movie is that he's just gaslighting everybody, and he might get his comeuppance in the end, but he doesn't also.
Interestingly enough, and maybe I should have touched on this. I should have touched on this maybe a little bit earlier, but we can save it for Rants and Raves. It has to do with the writing, and I'll get into that a little bit.
So that's it for this episode. If you subscribe to the Patreon level where you get to listen to Rants and Raves, clearly you're going to get an earful in just a bit. But thank you so much for joining our show. Patrick, is there anything that we can plug for you here at the end of the show for our listeners so that they can learn about jazz?
Well, I mean, a year ago, you, Megan, were on my podcast, it was a great episode, great time. So, you know, I've had a lot of great guests since you, and we've talked about some wonderful things. So I would love, you know, if you're wanting more, basically Tootsie encapsulates the first 20, 30 minutes encapsulates my podcast about why we'll never make it, what holds us back, what are we trying to overcome. So if you're an artist and just don't want to feel alone and want to know that other people are going through what you're going through and learn how to kind of make it through, then that's what my podcast is for. So Why I'll Never Make It. You can find it anywhere you find audio.
It's so funny. I told my mom about your podcast. She's like, I confess I haven't listened to it because I don't like thinking that you're not going to make it. And I was like, Mom, that's not what the podcast is about. She's like, it's not. And I was like, no, it's a play on words. It's about people have made it. It's just how you define success. She's like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, I'll go visit the podcast. And I'm like, okay.
Podcast.
I know.
That was redeeming, Mom.
Did you think the whole episode, I'm just going, this is why you'll never make it, because you're stupid. You're ugly. How dare you?
You're an imposter. What are you doing?
That's probably what she thought it was doing.
For whatever. And she was so cute about it. She's like, I don't know, maybe my generation just takes things too literally. And I was like, no, it's fine, Mom. It's okay.
Some weird therapy session. It's just a weird therapy session where you just like say all of the things you hate about yourself.
Like, no, I deserve this.
Sometimes it turns into that.
I mean, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Oliver Jones, thank you so much for being here. Please do check out his podcast, Why I'll Never Make It. It's, I assume, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Where you're listening to this
anywhere you're listening to this one right now.
Except for our Patreon.
Yeah, just go to the search button.
Yeah, which is right down here.
No, I don't think
here. Click here to no, we won't.
I don't think that's gonna happen. We're gonna have to talk to
Patrick. Thank you, Molly. Thank you for always keeping us on task and for being here. And to all of our amazing listeners, our Patreon viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys next time.
Bye. Bye.
So I Married a Cinephile is hosted by Benjamin Farmer
and Megan Carver.
It is produced by Molly McCarthy with original music by Tom McGovern. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at
SIMAC Podcast.
And you can find us on Patreon at
patreon.com/SIMAC Podcast.
Subscribe today and help out all of the artists that make this podcast happen.
So I married a cinephile.